The morning sun had barely cleared the eastern ridgeline when General Marcus Holloway stepped onto the parade ground of Fort Braxton. He was a man built like a concrete pillar, broad shoulders, a jaw that could stop a fist, and eyes that had seen 3 wars and never softened because of any of them. His uniform was pressed to surgical precision. Every medal on his chest had been earned in blood and mud, and places the newspapers never bothered to name. Behind him, 500 soldiers stood in perfect formation. Rows of men and women in green, standing at attention, breathing in controlled silence. The kind of silence that costs years of training to maintain. The kind that makes the air feel heavy and still. It was a routine inspection day, or so everyone thought. General Holloway walked the perimeter of the formation slowly, hands clasped behind his back, studying faces the way a sculptor studies marble. He was not looking for weakness exactly. He was looking for something harder to define. Something like character. Something like the readiness to hold a line when everything around you was collapsing. He had seen men crack in easier moments than this. Then he saw him. Standing near the center of the third row, unremarkable in placement but impossible to ignore in presence, was a young man who did not look like the others. He was lean where the others were thick. He stood still in a way that was different from the soldiers around him, not rigid, but rooted. Like a tree that had made peace with every storm that would ever come for it. His eyes were calm, focused somewhere beyond the horizon, and yet somehow entirely here. His name was Bruce Lee. He was 23 years old. He was not military. He was not enrolled in any division, regiment, or battalion at Fort Braxton. He had come as a guest, a demonstration of martial philosophy organized by the camp's athletic coordinator, Colonel James Webb, who had believed it would inspire the soldiers to see a different approach to discipline and physical mastery. Bruce had not asked to be there. He had simply agreed when asked. General Holloway stopped in front of him. He looked the young man up and down once. Twice, his expression did not change, but something shifted behind his eyes. Something calculating. "You," the general said. His voice was low and flat, the kind of voice that doesn't need volume because it has never had to ask for attention. "Who authorized you to stand in this formation?" Bruce looked at him directly, not defiantly, not nervously, just directly. "Colonel Webb, sir." General Holloway's jaw tightened almost imperceptibly. He looked toward the colonel standing at the edge of the ground, then back at Bruce. "This formation is for soldiers," the general said. "Not for civilians. Not for entertainers. Not for—" He paused, his gaze traveling over Bruce's civilian clothes, his slight frame, his youth, whoever you are. Bruce said nothing. "I am ordering you to leave this parade ground," the general said. "Now, in front of this formation. Walk off the field." 500 soldiers were watching. The silence deepened. The air tightened like a drawn bowstring. Bruce Lee looked at the general for exactly 1 second. One measured, unhurried second. Then he nodded once, and he turned and walked. Part 2. 5 seconds. What happened next, the soldiers who were there would argue about for the rest of their careers. Some said it started at the 3-second mark. Others swore it was closer to 4. A few, the ones with the sharpest eyes and the longest memories, said it began the moment Bruce took his first step. But everyone agreed on what happened. The formation froze. Not the kind of freeze that comes from confusion or shock. Not the clumsy, stumbling stillness of people who don't know what to do. This was something else entirely. A collective, instinctive, unanimous stillness. As if 500 separate human beings had simultaneously decided that the most important thing they could do in this moment was witness. The soldier in the front row, a veteran sergeant named Darnell Hooper, felt it first. He had been standing at attention for 17 minutes without moving. But this was different. His eyes, which had been fixed on the middle distance as protocol required, shifted. He couldn't explain it later. He just said, "Something made me look." He looked. Bruce Lee was walking across the parade ground. Just walking. Unhurried, each step placed with a quietness that seemed impossible on gravel. His back was straight. His hands were loose at his sides. His chin was level. He was not performing anything. He was not making a point. He was simply walking the way a man walks when he has nothing to prove, and no fear driving him, and no ego to protect. And it was the most remarkable thing Sergeant Hooper had ever seen on a parade ground. He didn't speak. He didn't break attention. But something inside him went completely still. The same way a compass needle goes still when it finds true north. The stillness spread. Soldier by soldier, it moved through the formation like a slow wave, or more precisely like the opposite of a wave, not an outward surge, but an inward one, a drawing in of breath, of attention, of something that might only be called recognition. They were all watching him walk. 5 seconds after the general's order, not a single person on that parade ground was moving. Not the soldiers, not the junior officers at the edges, not the administrative staff who had come out to observe the inspection, not even General Holloway himself, though he would never admit that part in any official report. Bruce Lee walked to the edge of the parade ground. He stopped. He turned around. And he looked back at the formation, not with triumph, not with defiance, but with something quieter and more unsettling than either. He looked back the way a teacher looks at a question that is just answered itself. Then he walked away. Part 3. The silence after for 7 full seconds after Bruce Lee disappeared around the corner of the equipment building. Nobody on that parade ground said a word. General Holloway stood where he had been standing. His hands were still clasped behind his back. His expression had not changed in any way that anyone could point to and describe. But something about him was different, subtly, imperceptibly, in the way that the weather is different the moment before a storm decides not to come. It was Colonel Webb who spoke first, from the edge of the field. "General," he said, simply. Holloway turned to look at him, said nothing. Webb chose his words carefully. He was a careful man by nature and by training. "Do you want me to continue the inspection, sir?" A pause. "Dismissed," General Holloway said. Then he turned and walked back toward the command building, his footsteps measured and even on the gravel, and did not look back. The formation broke. Soldiers exhaled. Shoulders dropped fractions of an inch. The careful silence fractured into the normal human noise of 500 people returning to themselves. Shuffled feet, murmured exchanges, the clearing of throats. But Sergeant Darnell Hooper did not move immediately. He stood in his spot in the front row for an extra moment, staring at the empty corner where Bruce Lee had disappeared. He was thinking about something he couldn't quite articulate, a feeling that he had just seen something important, something that would take him a long time to understand. He thought about it that night, lying in his bunk. He thought about it the next day during drills. He thought about it for weeks. What he had seen, he eventually decided, was not defiance. It was not showmanship. It was not even courage in the way he usually understood courage, the gritted teeth, white-knuckle variety that he had been trained to perform. What he had seen was composure. Complete, unshakable, unperformative composure. The kind that doesn't come from telling yourself to be calm, but from actually being calm in a place so deep inside yourself that external pressure simply cannot reach it. The general had tried to humiliate him in front of 500 witnesses. in a context designed to enforce hierarchy and order, and the clear understanding of who had power and who did not. And Bruce Lee had simply walked, not quickly, not in a hurry to escape the situation, not slowly either, in a theatrical display of indifference. Just walked. At the pace a man walks when he is going somewhere he means to go, when he is in his own body and his own mind and no one else's performance has any claim on either. That was what had frozen the formation. Not a speech, not a dramatic gesture, not a refusal or a confrontation or a moment of visible defiance, just a man being entirely himself at full presence under pressure. 500 soldiers, people trained to maintain composure, trained to hold a line, trained to stand at attention through discomfort and exhaustion and worse, had all, together, without coordination or planning or any signal at all, stopped what they were doing to watch one man walk across a field. Because they recognized something. Something they had been trained to aspire to and had perhaps never seen quite so clearly demonstrated. Part 4. What General Holloway said 3 days later. Colonel Webb was called into General Holloway's office. He went expecting a reprimand about the unauthorized civilian on the parade ground. He had his defense prepared. The morale program, the approved athletic calendar, the precedent set by previous educational demonstrations. He was ready to absorb the criticism professionally and move forward. What he was not ready for was what actually happened. General Holloway was standing behind his desk when Webb entered. He did not look up immediately. He finished reading whatever was on the page in front of him, set it down with deliberate care, and then looked up. "Close the door," he said. Webb closed it. "Sit down." Webb sat. For a moment, Holloway said nothing. He looked at Webb the way he looked at everything, with the flat, assessing gaze of a man who had been making high-stakes evaluations for 31 years and trusted his own reading of a situation absolutely. "That young man," Holloway said finally, "the one I had removed from the field." "Yes, sir. Tell me about him." Webb blinked. He had not expected this. "Sir, tell me about him. Who is he? Where does he come from? What does he do? What does he believe?" Webb told him. "Bruce Lee. Hong Kong by birth, American by residence. A martial artist, yes, but that word was too small. More accurately, a philosopher of movement, a man who had spent his life studying the relationship between body, mind, and action, who believed that the highest expression of martial ability was not force, but water, adaptive, formless, infinitely responsive, who taught that the biggest obstacle to human potential was not weakness, but the false armor of ego and the prison of other people's expectations." Holloway listened without interrupting. When Webb finished, the general was quiet for a long moment. "He didn't fight back," Holloway said. "No, sir, he didn't protest. No, sir, he didn't perform." Webb was quiet for a moment because he understood what Holloway was really saying. "No, sir, he didn't." Another silence. "You know why the formation stopped," Holloway said. "It was not a question. I have some thoughts, sir. They stopped because they recognized something they don't see every day." Holloway moved around to the front of his desk and leaned against it, arms crossed. The posture made him look less like a general and more like a man who was working something out. "We train these soldiers to hold a line under pressure, to maintain composure, to subordinate the ego to the mission. We drill it into them every day, and most of them get reasonably good at the performance of those things." He paused. That young man didn't perform any of it. He just had it, and they could tell the difference. Webb nodded slowly. "I want to speak with him," Holloway said. "Arrange it." Part 5. The conversation they met in the officers' mess the following afternoon. It was quiet at that hour, between lunch service and dinner preparation, the long, still middle of the day. 2 chairs across a small table, no audience, no formation, no hierarchy on display. General Holloway arrived first. He was in civilian clothes, an unusual choice that Webb noticed and understood. A deliberate leveling of the field. Bruce Lee arrived on time, which is to say, precisely on time, not early in an anxious show of eagerness, not late in a display of carelessness, but there at the agreed moment as if time itself had arranged things that way. He sat down across from Holloway. For a moment they just looked at each other. "You know who I am," Holloway said. "Yes, and you know what I did." "You ordered me off the field," Bruce said, "in front of your soldiers." "Yes, why are you telling me this?" Holloway was quiet for a moment. "Because I want you to know that I know what I did. And I want to ask you a question." Bruce waited. "Why didn't you react?" Bruce considered the question with what appeared to be genuine interest, as if it were a puzzle worth solving rather than an accusation to defend against. What would reacting have accomplished? For most people, Holloway said, being publicly embarrassed in front of 500 people would produce some kind of reaction. Anger, humiliation, pride. And what would those reactions have changed? Holloway tilted his head slightly. "You had the authority to order me off the field," Bruce said. "I was there as a guest. You had every right. Arguing with you would have served no one. Performing anger would have been a lie. I wasn't angry. Performing humiliation would have been a performance, and I have no interest in performing for anyone." A pause. "So, I walked." And the formation? Something shifted in Bruce's expression, not quite a smile, but the shape of one. "I can't speak for 500 people." "No," Holloway said. "But I can." He leaned forward slightly. "What they saw in you, I've been trying to teach that to soldiers for 31 years. Do you know how rare it is?" Bruce said nothing. "Most people's sense of self is held together from the outside," Holloway said. "By status, by approval, by how other people react to them. Pull any one of those supports away, and the whole structure shakes. What you have is different. Your sense of self is held together from the inside. It doesn't need the formation to validate it. It doesn't need my approval or my disapproval. It just is." A long pause. "I dismissed you because you were a civilian on my parade ground and I wanted to establish something," the general said. "What I established was not what I intended to establish." Bruce was quiet for a moment. "Then, what did you intend to establish?" Holloway smiled, briefly, the way a man smiles who has not done it often enough to be comfortable at it. "Control," he said. "Authority, the normal thing. And what did you establish instead?" "A question," Holloway said. "The same question your presence always establishes, I imagine. What is strength, really? Not the strength that orders people off parade grounds. The other kind." Epilogue. What the soldiers remembered Sergeant Darnell Hooper served another 14 years after that morning at Fort Braxton. He rose to Master Sergeant. He served in difficult places. He trained hundreds of soldiers and was respected by all of them, though he was not always easy to work with, because he had very specific ideas about what composure looked like, and he would not accept the performance of it as a substitute for the real thing. He told the story of Bruce Lee and the parade ground many times. He told it the same way every time, without embellishment, without drama. He just described what he saw, a young man walking across a field. The way he walked. The silence that spread through 500 trained soldiers who recognized something they couldn't name but would never forget. "It was the most important thing I ever saw on a parade ground," he would say. And nothing happened. That's the point. Nothing happened, and it was everything. Years later, when asked what the lesson was, he thought about it carefully before answering. The lesson, he said finally, is that real stillness is louder than any order. Real composure is more visible than any uniform. And a man who has made peace with himself, truly, deeply, all the way down, that man walks different, stands different, is different. He paused, and everybody can see it. Even when they don't know what they're seeing, he paused again, especially then.